Well, hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this little series. These Rockin' red colors are really pretty cool with the Daniel Smith, and I wanted to just do a little quick landscape using these beautiful red rocks. Okay, so this is actually a feature Picnic Rock, which is in Red Rocks Park in Denver, Colorado. So gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I wanted to do just a quick kind of watercolor sketch. We're not going to go into a big detail, type thing here, but I just wanted to play with it because this is a beautiful opportunity to use these pinks and browns together in some rock formations. Okay, so just kind of want to play with it. So let's get both of these up on the screen so that we can start to play with this a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick little sketch here, with, we've kind of talked about this before, but with boulders, we're working with rocks here, and boulders, oh my goodness, they are all by themselves very abstract shapes. And, when we start working with them, it's very easy to come up with some shapes that are not very convincing, and we're not quite sure what in the world we're even looking at. And so anyway, the main takeaway when working with boulders is to make sure that you are working with images that have got some good contrast to them, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of your values. Again, values are going to tell you everything that you need to know with your rocks. So I'm coming in here and just using a little bit of line work to sort of establish just a general sense of where the rocks are, and I'm kind of cropping in a little bit. I'll be losing a little bit of my landscape over to the right hand side because I'm just kind of focusing on these rocks since we are using these colors here. And I'm just focusing on, anytime I'm working with boulders or rocks, I really want to just look at these as really geometric shapes and not overthink things like it's easy to do sometimes. We all can kind of do that, but I just really want to play with this and kind of see what come up with. All of these granulating pinks and everything, it's really pretty amazing. So we've got this big vista over here that's kind of getting cut out of the picture, but I wanted to try to just play with this a little bit and just see what we can do with these rock shapes. And I'll be kind of cheating just a little bit by introducing a little bit of green into the mix, because we do have some shrubbery, bushy things happening around in here. So these rocks are really dramatic though. And I'm using my line work, using my pencils to really kind of come in here and establish some nice shape, giving my pigment somewhere to land. And I think that might be it. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to focus. I am going to put a little bit of, I'm going to put a little bit of sky in here. Not a whole lot, but again, I'm keeping it really soft. I'm going into getting some of my phthalo blue like I typically do, for our landscapes. The blue is going to look really nice with all these pinks and kind of brownish orangey tones that I envision adding in here, and lots of nice atmospheric effect out there in the distance. I'm just going to use that blue for that purpose too. And I think that might be all I do. Just a really nice soft little cloud shape out there. And I'm going to use this the Minnesota Pipestone Genuine. I'm going to kind of come in here with that and just sort of lay that in a little bit of everywhere, and this will become sort of my lighter value for all of these rocks. It's everything is really kind of reddish, of course, but sort of letting this be kind of my lighter value. And this nice big rock that's right here, and there's sort of another boulder kind of over behind it. Now notice I'm not getting into any Not chasing any values right now. I'm really establishing the lightest value for all of the stones, all the boulders. We'll come back and add more values as we go, but just keeping it very loose, working in much the way I would work, you know, if we were trying to do a plein air, while all of that is still kind of wet, you know, a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get into some of my, let me bring my palette over here into the viewing area right here. So this is just some, I've got my palette upside down from how I normally have it, but I'm getting into my serpentine green, my serpentine genuine, and again, just kind of laying that value in here, laying that pigment color in here, just establishing a base tone. And I am working very small. This is almost maybe like a 5x7-ish. And the reason I'm working so small is just because I'm so limited. I don't have all of these colors except for the bloodstone. I do have that one, but just want to kind of make sure I'm not running out of anything. There we go. And keeping everything very, very loose. Very, very loose. Okay, so now I'm going to get into this pink, the rhodonite, or yeah, let me make sure I'm saying that right. Oh, how do you say that? Rhodonite. Okay, I'm kind of mixing the two together, this Minnesota pipestone and the rhodonite together, because it's giving me these beautiful, you know, sort of pinkish tones that I'm seeing, you know, in the stone and in the dirt. Out here, I'm just kind of looking through my photo, and that both of them, it's the rhodonite that really granulates, and so it's giving me this beautiful rocky kind of gritty sort of texture, visual texture. It's not really a texture that's sitting up on top of the page, but really, really nice. All right, I think I'll get into this granite, excuse me, the garnet. I keep saying granite, it's garnet. All right, so it's darker, and I'm going to use that to kind of come in here and tackle some of these dark shadows that are, you know, on the opposite sides. We've got a really nice, strong, sunlit, you know, we can tell exactly where the sun is. There's no mistaking, and that definitely makes it easier to come into these rock shapes and really find the dark values. Just, we really want to hit those pretty hard because they are very dark. Just kind of looking over my photo reference, grabbing all the little bits of dark value that I see. And you know, my brush is larger, and but I can still get a fine point. If you're finding that you're struggling with a bigger brush, just drop down to a smaller brush. That is okay. And I'm just chasing values. If I see a dark spot, I want to try to put it in there. And I'm working, you know, wet on wet here. Alright, just with a little bit of damp brush here, just coming in to some of these places where I see I can maybe kind of blend a little bit here and there. This one rock is really, It almost has, I guess maybe there's some mossy stuff growing on it. I can't tell, but there's sort of this greenish tint. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm still working with my larger brush. I'm gonna drop down to my rigger brush, or excuse me, not my rigger brush, but my little dagger, just so I can get a little bit more control. While some of these pinks are drying, I do want to go back in there to define a little bit more, but while they're drying, I'm going to get into the greens just a little bit. I'm using the my Serpentine Genuine, and I'm also going to get a little bit of my my ultramarine blue. I just want to push that down a little bit darker. And I'm just going to start coming in, and I can see where there's some darker greens that are kind of hanging around here. And again, keeping everything nice and loose. This is just a little sketch. It's not meant to be highly detailed. I just want to get the colors, the color placement, and of course, most importantly, the values. Now, where the shadows get really dark, I can really push a lot of blue in that, and I'm actually going to bring some of my bloodstone into that blue-green mixture to really get dark right here behind this rock. And then up here on the top portion of the ridge, it's really dark because all of that is just sort of in shadow over here. Chase those values, and it doesn't even matter what color you use, just as long as you get it as dark as it needs to be. I'm just using the bloodstone nearly at straight volume back here to full volume to get those really darks back there. There's even some little sections on this boulder itself that are really dark. Just keep chasing the values. Even right here in front of the boulder, even though it's in front of the boulder, it's still like a shadow from some of that grass. You know, when you're working with an image that's got really strong sunlight like this, it's so it really makes things a little easier because you can really chase the values. The dark ones are just so prevalent, you can't miss them. They're just right there. All right, so this is kind of a medium green that's sort of happening here in front of these rocks a little bit. And all these little bushy things they're just kind of a little bit of everywhere, popping up through the rocks and here and there and everywhere. I might get a little bit of my Quin Gold just to pop some yellows into some of these little places. I'm already starting to get some 3D kind of form happening a little bit. I'm going to use some more of this, what was this, the garnet. Let's try to get a little bit of that. This boulder that's kind of in the back, it's definitely reddish. And I'm going to mix a little bit of my bloodstone with the garnet to get sort of a reddish brown, because I really need to see that happening right up here, kind of in all of these little details. It's a little darker up here. I'm going to use some of that, the pipestone, the Minnesota pipestone. I'm using some of that right here on the edge, the leading edge of this cliff. Just filling that in a little bit. Got a nice dark shadow down here. One of these other boulders. There's a couple of them down here. I may have kind of drawn them in the wrong place, but I'm still going to just add those values in there where I see that it's getting dark. Just kind of working my way through the painting, looking for these little rock shapes. And off in the distance, I've kind of got that little, there's a little valley back there. A lot of things are happening, but it's all really, really small. Might get a little bit of cobalt blue just to kind of indicate there's a little ridge off in the distance back there, keeping that really, really atmospheric and soft back there. All right, I'm going to let this dry just a little bit so that we can add a few more details and kind of polish up this little sketch. Okay, so this has had some time to dry. It may be a little bit damp, but still using the little Rockin red grouping of colors here, and pulling pulling a few greens in from my other palette. But let's kind of take off again and sort of wrap up this little sketch. We're just kind of keeping it very, very loose, very soft. And I'm getting a little bit more of my, let me zoom out just a little so you can kind of see what I'm mixing together here. All right, so I've got my, again, my serpentine green, and like I said, all this is pretty much dry. I just want to come in here and kind of clarify just a few of these little colors. I'm kind of just using a little scumbling kind of technique, just a little bit, to kind of give myself the idea that there's grassy clumps and whatnot, but I'm not getting too precious with it. Just a few little color variations in here. But these different, definitely, especially the Minnesota pipestone, and also the garnet. Was it garnet? Yeah, the garnet genuine. Both of those are just excellent stone colors. The pink, the bright pink that we had used, it definitely throws a different little color combination in here. But it was just kind of fun to play with. The rocks aren't quite this pink, but it was still kind of fun to play with that, and just sort of see what you come up with here. And just trying to, keep, with this same color palette here, just to kind of play with it. I had mentioned this before in a previous video. I don't think by any means, Daniel Smith expects you to just make a painting with these 4 colors, but they do kind of group them together just for fun, but they're kind of interesting to use together just to see what you can kind of come up with. So I'm just getting back into kind of mix the bloodstone and the garnet together to give myself a little bit of a dark value, so I can kind of come in here and just kind of sketch in a few of these lines, in the stone. I don't want them to be really too dark. That's why I kind of mixed the garnet and the bloodstone together to sort of, tone that down. But it just lets me have a little bit of that dark tone that I'm seeing in the rocks to sort of grab some of these little, nooks and crannies and crevices and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not being real precious with it. I'm not trying to be overly realistic. I just want to grab, some of these major little shapes that stand out to me that really kind of give you that sense of that craggy rock texture that we're seeing in here. It's really, really fun to do. And I'm kind of keeping my brush is not too wet, but it's not too dry either. I still want it to almost kind of, I want to be able to almost just draw with it just a little bit. And I can just kind of make some scumbling extra marks, you know, to kind of get that dry brush look. Just keeping everything really soft. I don't want to get into heavy details or anything here. I just want to just have fun with it. Just again looking at the values, always chasing values. That's really what it kind of comes down to. This one boulder that's sort of behind this other one, I don't want to try to bring too much attention there. I just kind of want it to just kind of sit there. I'm going to let this one that's in the foreground kind of be more the star of the show here. And I can get really, really dark on this side here. That sunlight is super, super strong. There we go. And I think that might be it. I just, you know, just wanted to play with it really, just kind of see what I would come up with using those color combinations together. And you know, they're definitely very, very fun. I think just for the sake of using the pigment, I've got a nice place down here where I can kind of add a little bit more of that, sort of that combination of the pipestone and the garnet together. You know, that was, and I can even afford to maybe just put a little extra pink in there. It's really intense color right there, and I think I don't mind it sort of looking pink. Actually, it's kind of fun just to add a little extra. We can kind of get a little bit subjective with our colors, and it's fun. And being able to add that pink in there, it's kind of nice. I'm just kind of using it almost as a highlight color. In some of these areas where I know that the rock has just got a little extra tone. There's not really pink on this big rock, but I'm gonna, just for the sake of the composition, I think I might add just a little bit. There we go. All right, so just a fun little thing there. Let me dry that. Just because I kind of can't help it, I'm gonna add, I'm just mixing up a dark green just to kind of push that value in a couple of these places. Almost can't help it. There we go. Just kind of helped that foreground come into focus just a little bit more. And I'm just using a little scrub brush. I'm just lifting out just a little bit right here in the front. Just a few little bits of leaves, or not leaves, but little grasses that sort of come up in the front right there. I'm just going to use some of my green gold to come in here and drop that in, because it'll show up. A little bit of grass right in front of that boulder. Alright. Very good. All right, so a fun little composition to just kind of play with, you know, after exploring those colors and kind of putting them together. And the pinks and the greens really do make this stand out. Just a fun way to kind of play with those colors for that.